Just a quick introduction. I am Navigator. I am very grateful. This is really a gift from the Lord for me to come and share this with you, and to kind of look at His Word and let that inspire us. I was really worried when Leslie put on a brief about me, and I just want you to know, let's have a high expectation that God will show up. I came to Singapore in 1972. I left my hometown very desperate. I had grown up with my grandfather who adopted me, and he passed away in lower secondary. And then in secondary school, I was all by myself for 2 years. I managed to scrape through high school. 一般的学生啊，妈妈です。And I came to Singapore to look for GOLD, gold. I want to find my pot of gold in Singapore. And I came and I went to Jurong. I duly signed up for one of the factories. And then I got an interview with the Air Force. They were recruiting technicians. And why not? When you're desperate, anything does. They're going to feed you. They're going to teach you. And if you get sick, you got a doctor. Wow, that was wonderful. So I was the first batch of technicians with the Air Force. And there were 500 of us. Majority of us were Malaysians. And it was while in camp at AETI that I started to investigate the idea of what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I had gone to ACS in Malaysia, and it was a very strange decision because my grandfather, who is from China, decided to send me to an English school, and all the neighbors said to him, "Aren't you afraid they will brainwash him? He become a believer?" And his answer was very pragmatic. He says, "Anybody who's a lawyer, doctor, engineer, civil servant, they all went to English school. This religion thing, I'll cross the bridge when I get to it." So I went to the Methodist school and I heard all the Bible stories, except I never heard the gospel. It was a time when the chaplain himself wasn't a believer. It was just a social thing. So I came to Singapore looking for gold, and the Lord was very gracious. I found GOD, not GOLD. And so after I came to faith, there was nurturing by people like Kaiwa. I remember the day he sat down and asked me, "If you die tonight, where would you be going?" I said, "Heaven." "How do you know?" "I don't know. Would you like to know?" And he made me memorize, 1 Corinthians, the beginning with Christ. And then he passed me on to Raj. I remember every time I went to Bible study, I can see Raj mustache, and he's moving. And I'm listening to him, that nice voice that he has. And then when I go up and I see the pilot's wings, I can see Raj's mustache. Somehow those two are associated for me, the wings and Raj mustache. And I was nurtured by people like that. And then there were further refinement when I stayed with David Lee and Bernard. But for all that tough discipline, I am very grateful to people like Nang Fong and Sylvia and all the other ladies of faith who gave some tenderness, some other soft side of life. I remember they were very kind to me. I am very grateful for those tenderness. I should be a navigator and go into ministry with a navigator, but the Lord pivoted me to a different direction because of input from other people. There was Dr. Ramesh, who was an OMF missionary. She taught English and linguistics in Nanyang, Nanta, the old Nanyang Dashi. And she said, you might want to consider a kind of ministry that has to do with languages. And I duly said to her, no. But then when the Lord worked on me, the time was right. I pivoted. And Dr. Chandler was the other person that spoke to me about this. Yeah. So it was the kind of voices that spoke to me that opened my mind to possibilities. That's when I went. Okay. All right. My topic for today is called Treasure in Styrofoam Cups. Styrofoam cups is just a modern equivalent of an ancient concept called clay pots or vessels of clay. So, and sometimes when we use metaphors from the Old Testament, New Testament, biblical times, we really need to bridge it to our today's equivalent. So that's the reason I use treasure in styrofoam cups. Our text is taken from 2 Corinthians chapter 4. And I'm going to read that as best as I could. Therefore, since through God's mercy we have this ministry, we do not lose heart. Rather, we have renounced secret and shameful ways. We do not use deception, nor do we distort the word of God. On the contrary, by setting forth the truth plainly, we commend ourselves to every man's conscience in the sight of God. And even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing. The God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. For we do not preach ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as your servants for Jesus' sake. For God, who said, "Let light shine out of darkness," made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. Verse 7. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not abandoned. Struck down, but not destroyed. We have always carried around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. For we who are alive are always given over to death for Jesus' sake, so that his life may be revealed in our mortal body. So then, death is at work in us, but life is at work in you. It is written, "I believed, therefore I have spoken." With that same spirit of faith, we also believe and therefore speak. Because we know that the one who raised the Lord Jesus from the dead will also raise us with Jesus and present us with you in his presence. All this is for your benefit, so that the grace that is reaching more and more people may cause thanksgiving to overflow to the glory of God. Therefore, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal weight of glory, eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. Therefore, now in Navigators, when you do Bible study, very early on this, when you see a therefore, you got to ask, what is it there for? Chapter 3 was the setting for chapter 4. Everything that happened in chapter 3 points to a whole new way of looking at things. And that is, the old covenant was good, but the new covenant is better. What it basically says is conditions are now better for you. Therefore, since we have this ministry by the mercy of God, do not give up. So it's not like the old was bad, the new is good. It's really the old was good, but the new is better. So in Singapore slang, we say, lagi best. Okay? So on that basis, it says, do not give up. Therefore, do not give up, or we do not lose heart. And it was repeated in towards the end of in verse 16. So it's sort of like sandwiched between these two admonishments, do not lose heart. And then repeated in verse 16, we have the meat of the message, which I outline as ministry, the messenger of the ministry, and God who give the ministry. So, do not lose heart. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean like a heart operation in which the heart was taken away. It simply means it's another a figure in language to mean do not be afraid. Or the Japanese say ganbatte, persevere. Don't give up, hang on. And the Chinese translation is very interesting. It says don't shrink your gallbladder. But all that means is do not be faint of heart, be resolute, hang on, keep going. What are we to keep hanging on or do not give up? It is ministry. And who shouldn't give up and who can help you and inspire you or sustain you so that you and I won't give up. Okay. You see here, there are some words that I like to point your attention to. It says, what is the ministry? The ministry really is to set forth the truth plainly to every man's conscience. It's talking about sharing the gospel, the good news to people who need to hear it. And even if they don't believe, that's one of the reasons why we tend to give up or lose heart, because it's hard sometimes. People don't want to believe. But it is not because of a lack of effort. It's because there is a reality that coming to faith is not a matter of intelligence or ability on our part to present. We will do a good job of presenting the gospel. We set forth the truth plainly to every man's conscience. But whether they believe or not is really not of our doing. It is a contest between God and the enemy, in which case the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers, and they cannot see the light of the glory of the gospel of Jesus Christ, who is the image of God. So it's like this. Why do I wear this? Sometimes when I go to sleep, I don't want the light to come. I'm choosing not to have the light so I can sleep. Those of you who travel on airplanes, long trips, they provide you this or you bring one. I bring one of this so they cover my eyes so that I can have sleep. Why? Because I want to cut off the light. So that's happening in other people when we share the gospel. I'm forever grateful to a man in the Navigators who said this to me. Remember Lau Cheng Ho? Much is caught rather than taught. Something he said just stuck with me all the years. It says, without light, perfect eyes are as good as blind. How true. And spiritually, that is true too. I remember a time when I was, my buddy and I, we were sharing the gospel with somebody who was a shipyard worker. And that guy came, we talk about apologetics, the defense of the faith. He had the counter apologetics. For everything we said, he had an answer prepared why it couldn't be. And we talked to the man we summoned all of our knowledge and experience and tried to persuade him that he was wrong. And he was defensive and we were combative. He was combative. And we went past midnight. And suddenly, without any syncing or prearranged signal from my body, we both somehow toned down our combativeness, and we just listened to what he had to say, and we responded as best as we could with a very different tone of voice. And all of a sudden he says, I still remember, he says, I get it. I get it. And he prayed to accept Christ. There was quite a revelation to us that it is not just the mind that was involved. There's something going on that only God, through His Spirit, can reach in there and turn it on. And that's called the light, the illumination of the Holy Spirit. So sometimes we give up because we forget this dimension where our work is not just mind, skills, and attitude. It's more than that. It is in the heavenlies. It's a different realm. Now, I don't want to mystify it, but it is a reality, right? We believe in prayer. Prayer is sometimes unnatural, according to the materialists. But it is a reality. We do pray for things, and they do happen. Okay. All right. We go on to verse 7. So what is our ministry? Here is the verse that sort of encapsulates the whole chapter. It says, we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. So, there is a treasure, there is a jars of clay, there is the surpassing power, and there is God, and there is us. These are all the personalities and things that are involved in this whole thing. So now it's our time to sort of work through these three things. All right. First of all, what is the treasure? It's not jewel. It's not money. It is the gospel of Jesus Christ. Just like I said just now, that guy was come ready, and once he come to faith, it changed his life. I came to Singapore looking for gold, G-O-L-D. I was poor. But today, as I look back, I am so grateful that the Lord in His mercy saved me. Had I not come to faith, I think I would be looking for love in all the wrong places. I would be given to trying to make a success of myself financially and whatever else I thought was necessary or important. But I am just very, very grateful. The Lord in His mercy and grace realized I need a certain kind of a life partner. And now children, all three of the children they love the Lord, they walk with the Lord, and they are very skillful people. All three are involved in IT. Even the second son, who is a mechanical engineer, is involved in IT. I don't get it, but their mother did a great job of educating them. So the gospel of Jesus Christ says, think back on your own life. Think back on your own life. Had it not been for coming to faith, I think your life would go down a different trajectory. I think of a person like John Newton, a very dedicated slave trader, making his money, his pot of gold, from the sufferings of other human beings. And from that riches that he got, he lived a very, very, really a life of debauchery. I mean, the kind of things he was involved with, just wicked and evil. But he came to faith. And when he came to faith, he flaked and spent his life advocating abolition. And he found an ally in, what's his name? Wilberforce. Yes, my wife is there. She's helping me to remember. William Wilberforce, and they succeeded. Wow, what a change. So when Jesus saved, he don't just save. He saved in a very dynamic, sometimes superlative, it's an awesome gospel that saves. And people are changed. You are changed. I was changed. That's why coming back to this Nav family is just a wonderful gift from the Lord to remind me from whence I had come. When I left that little town, I was fearful. I was afraid. I had very little things. I was just alone in Singapore. But the Lord, over the years, because of coming to faith, switched direction. Maybe if I stayed on in a career without knowing the Lord, well, I just did all the things Singaporeans do. Yeah, but is that what life is all about? I have more purpose and direction today than I ever will be. So when Jesus saved, he saves in a very superlative way for the person who was saved. Therefore, it is a treasure. It is something to be desired. And that is kept in a very, very simple container. This came from somebody who traveled to India, and he posted a travel log, and he was in Bangalore, I think. He went to the chai wala and ordered chai, and he filmed it. And he says, and he drink the tea, and this is made of clay. So when you're done with it, you chuck it. It's a disposable. So the purpose of this vessel is to contain the chai so that you can convey it to your mouth and enjoy it. So we are called jars of clay. The purpose of being a jar of clay is to do one thing, to contain the treasure that God has put in it, which is the gospel. We disciple after they come to faith so that more of this will happen. It is not just to disciple. We disciple so that they will go out and share the gospel. Being here in Taiwan, I have more freedom to do that. We have gone out to reach out to people. And I passed by 2 pizza guys. Finally, my wife shared the gospel with them, and they're starting to come to church. I informed the church. I go to 7-Eleven one day, and I saw a gal who works in 7-Eleven, and she's using a computer. I made a mistake of thinking she was a vocational school gal, and she told me, no, I'm doing my graduate degree at this university. And I said, oh, 你是我的学妹. I am your senpai in the same university. So we became friends. So recently I was able to invite her and share with her my life story, and then we're going to connect her to a discovery group to discuss the Bible. Why? Because that's the good news given to us, and we ought to share it. Okay? So we are the vessel who has a ministry of sharing the good news. But let me remind you, what is clay? Before we have too high a view of ourselves. Clay is simply baked mud. That's what it is. Okay? That's what we are. Baked mud. Don't think too high of ourselves. That's what we are. And what is common to baked mud is that they break very easily. They do. They break very easily. But yet, we don't break that easily, not because we are strong of ourselves. Remember, Paul says, I was pressed from all sides, but not crushed. How can that be possible? How can that be possible? Many of the saints in that big piece of real estate across the street from here, of a different generation, I met some of them. They have lived through this squeezing, pressing, and they came out strong. Sidney Lamb said he wanted to sing hymns of faith to rejoice. But they wouldn't let him. But they gave him a job at the far end of the prisoner camp, where his job was to shovel human manure. And even the guards found it so filthy, they won't show up. They just left him in that corner. And he dawned on him that here he was his opportunity to worship the Lord and sing as much as he's won, because nobody came around. I remember Dr. Chanda used to say that, when he was in the A&E ward, he says, I had the whole operating theater with all the aircon to myself, and I could worship the Lord as I freely could. So the Lord sustains in very different ways, but he will sustain. Even though we are very like paper cups, styrofoam cups, we are baked mud, we can crush. But he sustained because he is awesome. And I like to use the word, he is turbocharged awesome. If you think of a motorbike, I used to have a Honda 175. Could you imagine if you have a Honda 50, a little super cup, and you're trying to overtake a Kawasaki 750? It will be quite a strain. But the reverse, if you're riding on a Kawasaki 750cc, you're trying to overtake a Honda Cup. You don't even have to shift gears. All you have to do is just throttle it a little bit. It is a turbocharged experience because the disparity in power is so great. The disparity in awesomeness is so great that it's not just struggling to pass it. It is surpassing in a very different way. Go see the videos in the Autobahn, in the German expressway, those cars on the left lane. They don't overtake like this. They just... Because if you drive a Ferrari or a Porsche or a BMW supercharged, you don't have to struggle past the guy on your right. You just go, whoop, and just go. And that is the picture God intends for us to demonstrate through our working with Him. He is the supercharged one. Let Him show forth His strength, His awesomeness, His majesty, because we are weak. We are big mud. We have the opportunity to show forth that He is great. If we're too beautiful, we're too ornate, so we try to, we steal some of the glamour, so to say. So we are just big mud. I would like to, having discussed this or presented this, have some real examples that we can see for ourselves, how God actually surprises us with very, very ordinary people. Imagine an enemy of your country, and there is a commander who is very important to the enemy side. Who would you send on special ops to take him out? You send a bunch of commandos who are physically fit, preferably masculine men, or very, very, very vicious, willing to take them out, highly trained, skillful in all the weaponry, can maybe airdrop using quiet mode and rapid force to just take him out. Or you send a very sophisticated drone with very accurate sighting and all this thing and take him out. You won't send a woman, would you? One woman. You won't send somebody who's a non-combatant, would you? You won't send a civilian, would you? Neither did God. God just arranged for the commander of the enemy, Sisera, to show up very tired, and Jael was able to provide him a meal. Here is Jael, and Sisera was tired, came, provided him a meal. He fell asleep, and she was able to improvise, took a tent peg, and took him out. Isn't it amazing? I would, if I were the general directing a war, I want to send special ops. I won't be picking jail. I would be picking Joshua, Caleb. But God did. Why? Because He has the whole situation in control. All right. How many of you remember this place in Hong Kong? This is called the Kowloon Walled City. This is an anomaly of history. It belonged to the Chinese government, and when the British took over Hong Kong, they had it. In fact, it was there before the Qing dynasty. So it's no man's land because it doesn't belong to England. England doesn't want to administer it. And it's too far away from China, and they have no resources to send to control it, nor do they want to. So it had its own life, a lot of illegal buildings, and it came out and all. And inside was a different world, a dark world of dripping illegal wires, tap here and tap there. And in this place, festered gangs, opium dens, heroin dens, prostitution, and legitimate business like fishball, wonton, noodles, all mixed in there. Who would you send there for ministry to work with drug addicts? You think of somebody who had the right training, had the right support, and so forth and so forth. No. Here comes an English gal, 22 years old. She was a musician who played the oboe. She had applied to other missions. Nobody wanted her. And what did she do? One of her reverends, Anglican pastor, said to her, said, Jackie, buy a ship ticket to go around the world. At every port of call, get down and pray. If the Lord tells you to stay, you stay. And she came to Hong Kong, she stayed. And she went in to the wall city, and she did her drug rehab work, and very successful because she was not framed nor limited by her own previous training. She had nothing. She was just an oboe player. She taught English. She had a center that the gangs kind of destroyed, and then she said, I need to be like them. And she walked among them, and she learned to speak Cantonese, and she had no other methodology. So what she did was pray for the addicts, and they recovered. And then she became very successful in doing what God had to do. But she's not somebody we would normally think of as the right candidate to do something so different and extraordinary. She said that when she was first entered the wall city, every morning she would walk over dead bodies because people overdose, and they would just put them near the public toilet, nearer the outside. In such a scary place she went. A pristine English gal showed up, and God showed himself great, amazingly great, awesomely awesome through her, in her, for her, and with her to get what he wants done. And there were people who came to faith. Amazing. Now to somebody in our family, in our NAF family. In 94, I came back to Singapore to join, to take part in the Go Forth 94. And while I was at my Wycliffe booth, a man came up to me and he said this to me. He said, Brian, I remember you, but you don't remember me. I said, that's not true. I remember you, but I don't remember your name. I know you are with the Navigators. Once an alligator, always an alligator. I know. He said, I have a story to tell you. I said, what? I'm willing to listen. So we stepped away from the noise, and he told me the most incredible story. Since Kim Meng is here, Anna, he said he went with the Navs on a mission trip to Vietnam. Oh, some of you already, you know who that I'm talking about. And he said, the Lord told me to go back. So he went back. He learned Vietnamese. This is from my conversation with him. He said, then he started going out to the hill tribe people. He met a group of people called the Churu people. And he found that there were pastors in their midst. So he said to them, why don't you translate the Bible into your own language? So they did. And when he was done, he took the draft to see the experts. And you know what the experts said to him? You can't do it this way. He said, how should I do it? You should take your people, come to us for training, and do it the proper way. He said, there is a problem. First of all, the educational level is not what you want. And at that time, they don't get a visa, a passport that easily to leave the country. So he told the pastors to go into the village, photocopied or what, he multiplied the book. And they went out into the village and they read it aloud. People were crying in tears. So through my own internal network in my organization, I found the elderly man who was working with this group before the fall of Vietnam. So I wrote to him, I said, Gene, I met this guy in Singapore. He told me this story. Is it true? And he wrote back and says, yes, Brian, this is true. I am so glad that God brought this man. We are now working with the same group on both sides of the world, the refugees in California and the ones inside the country. And this brother of ours is not a full-time staff with the Navigators. He was the storekeeper. And you know him as Winky. God did that moment changed my paradigm of how we should work. That as the world changes, there is more ways that God can use us to get his job done. We have this treasure in vessels of clay so that the surpassing power of God may show forth in us. Okay, what does all this mean to us? It's like this. This is a sailing term. The sail in the front is called a spinnaker. A spinnaker is designed to catch the wind when it comes from directly behind you in a straight line. Okay? When the wind comes directly from behind, you turn on the spinnaker, it will catch the wind and it will pull you very fast. During one of our annual conferences, when my mission group meets and we go to a retreat, there was a speaker that went through with us the book of Acts. He said that if I have to sum up the book of Acts, it is the work of the divine wind, the Holy Spirit, and the disciples of Jesus Christ discern the work of the Spirit and the direction he is going, and they followed. And they experience all of the things that they need to do and to be because the Holy Spirit was moving it. So, the same scene here. If the wind, the divine wind is blowing in this direction, catch the wind. Don't try to paddle. You're not going to make it any faster. And it's hard to paddle. Why do that? Learn to discern where God is going, follow it, and the wind will take you where you want to go, where he wants you to go, in fact. So, the lesson for us, how does it apply to me? Don't give up. Hang on. If you look at this picture, I don't think we need to tell him not to give up. Because if he ever give up, what's going to happen to him? The consequences are great. Except in this case, he has a safety rope. If without a safety rope, he cannot and will not give up. He has to pull himself up. This is a bare hand climber. But I think we need to look at it from this perspective. If somebody is hanging on to somebody, who do you think has the great possibility of giving up? I believe there's no risk to the hand at the very top, trying to pull the person at the bottom up. The temptation to give up is more likely to be in the person at the top. That's us. We have the gospel. We have something that, when shared, will release the transformation that people need, that God intends to do. But sometimes we give up because the conditions are hard. We are tired, we are busy, we have a lot of excuses. While preparing this for you, the 7-Eleven gal and the pizza boys, it is God's reminded me not to give up. I have been walking past them for 2 years. Those two boys came much later. But still, every time I stop by, I say hello, chatter with them, talk about the pizza business. But I'm not giving up because they have something that can change their life, and that is the gospel. So let God, who is this awesomely awesome, turbocharged, awesome God, work in you, with you, for you, and through you. And one of the things I've learned in life is, don't be a hero. Think about this. We are finite human beings, limited in many ways. If we are trying to live for God, do things for God, who is infinite, that's a little bit of a contradiction. But what does God want us to do? He wants us to be with Him. Work with Him so that He can work in us and through us what He wants to do. And then we enjoy His resources. We enjoy His resources. At the moment of need, He will provide. He will provide. This morning we were having prayer meeting, and one of the local pastors who has a big mission heart, they've been going to Indonesia, and with COVID, they can't go anywhere with the virus. But he knows that there are a lot of Indonesian maids here and Indonesian students studying in the local schools. But they were sort of not in a good situation because they are a vocational school. They have to work for X number of hours and they come back and then they go to classes. And among the many students was one Christian young man whose parents they had met while on their short-term trip. And now he has an opportunity to work with this young man, to work with the rest of them. And this young man eats only one. He doesn't eat breakfast because the factory where he works is so far away. He shares the taxi with 4. So to economize, he eats no breakfast. So he's thinking of starting some kind of food place. So again, when things look difficult, God shows up. He does it differently. So we are not limited by our own ability. We are limited by our faith in this all-surpassing power that comes from God. Let Him shine through you. Don't give up. Don't give up. Never give up. Whatever God has entrusted to you to do, never give up. Yes, I am tired. Yes, I am weak. I'm getting older. I don't run as fast as I used to. But the best is yet to be. That's an ACS term, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. I saw a smile in Leslie. It's true. The most significant thing an old man did by the name of Barzillai was he helped David, King David, who was running for his life. And it was done at his old age, the most significant thing. So there might be more stuff for you to do. You're not age is but a number. Caleb, at age 80, says, give me the high mountains. I don't want to the lowlands. It's too easy. I want to take the hard ones. So let me challenge you. First of all, rejoice and revere the treasure called the gospel. Be very enthusiastic about sharing it. Recognize that we are frail, limited, finite, weak, so forth, so forth, so forth. But then anticipate this awesomely awesome God, this turbocharged awesome God will show up and demonstrate his greatness in getting things done. Amen? Amen. Thank you. Be brief, brother. Be